Okay, so we have a character rigged up with human, I guess, skeleton, and got it posed here just to kind of see where there might be some flaws and how this character moves. Now, for the most part, everything should be working just fine as far as the placement of the joints goes. But as you can see, there are certain things that happen to the mesh if the mesh is not correctly bound to the rig. So, and what we call that is skinning. So when we skin the skeleton, that means that we are binding the geometry here to the actual bones here. So let's talk a little bit about this more. First thing I'm going to do is open my human IK controls over here. I have this open tab right here. If you don't have this human IK, another way you can get to that is clicking this little human body up on the top right corner, where you can turn on and off this controls. So here we have them, and if I want to get them back to the normal T pose or T stance, then I'm going to click this stance pose here, and he snaps back into place. Now, if I wanted to flex certain joints, I would select them here. Makes it a lot easier sometimes. You don't have to worry about selecting the different controls on your model. So I've got this selected and I'm just kind of testing out some movements. There's some abnormalities here with the way some of this moves, and you want to try to keep it within a normal range as far as like how, like obviously this is not going to look right. So try to keep it within a normal range. What is it supposed to look like as you're flexing this character? And does that look normal? Okay, so this is usually where I see, students in class like moving their bodies and looking to make sure that, hey, this guy is moving right or not moving correctly, and now we know how to make some changes. So I'm looking at this part of this, the mesh here, and it doesn't look correct to me. So what I'm going to do is go into, make sure that I'm in, first of all, in rigging here, my menu set, and up here in my menu, I have skin. And I'm going to click on paint skin weights option box right here. And I'm going to do it by hierarchy, and it will show all the bones here. What I want to do is select the mesh here. And so here he is. Got the mesh selected. What I now need to do is locate the joint that I want to look at. So that will not work. Go back to my mesh, and I'm going to have to select it here in this. So this would be his left shoulder. So let's look up left shoulder here. It's all done by hierarchy, so it's going to start with shoulder. And now I've selected it, and now I see it highlighted here. Now the white areas are the parts that are affected most by this shoulder joint. The black areas are not affected. You have different options here. We're going to just talk about painting for now. And the paint operation kind of go back and forth between replace and smooth as we start off. Or as we just basically talk about this intro into rigging. And I've got different profiles for a brush. Some are very soft, medium, very harsh, and a different shape brush, very harsh brush here as well. And we're going to be painting skin weights. This is the options that I have when I have replace chosen. The opacity, kind of like, think about it in Photoshop. And the value, one being that as I paint here, the tool will paint white, which means now this part of the chest is affected also by the shoulder joint. I'm going to undo that. If If I change this down to 0, now I've said, no, I don't want those parts affected by that joint, and I painted black over it. Do that as well. You can also go in between, and it will kind of almost give like a little bit of a smoothing effect, but it also, you can see there, it changes how the geometry is affected by that joint. You can see it moving as I paint around. And opacity, basically just taking out some of the strength of that brush. So this is a black and white version of painting these skin weights on. There's also an option here for using color ramp, and hot spots here are literally shown by warm, hot colors. These are highly affected areas here. You can see right here, right near the joint, it's green. So I might want to actually make some changes there to make this part of the shoulder maybe a little bit more affected by that joint. Or vice versa. A lot of this is kind of just playing and experimenting and seeing what works best for your mesh. They're all going to be very different. Now I have this tool here, and it's kind of large for the space that I want to affect. So I'm going to press B as in Bravo on my keyboard, and I'm going to left mouse click drag left and right to change the size of that brush. So I'll resize it and kind of brush around and see what my effects are having on here. So I can see it's having an opposite effect of what I really want. I would rather have this shoulder come out more. So let me adjust my slider here and bring this out like so. Now, one of the difficulties we're going to have here with these models is that these are low poly models. And so it's going to be a challenge to really make it as realistic as possible, or as maybe you would like it. We are going to try to make it as realistic as possible with these models, but it's going to be a difficult thing to do because there's not a lot of polys to adjust on a smaller level. So we have huge faces here that we're adjusting the angles of, and it's always going to appear kind of blockish, I guess you can say. Now, this is getting the effect that I want, but it's also changing the way I want this to look. So this is where you kind of have to play around with the different tools here and your options to see exactly how can I make this look the best possible way. And it's possible that maybe my joint itself is not in the most ideal spot either. So maybe it could actually be a little bit further out, but I want to work with the best of what I have, or at least for this example, so you can see how you can change these settings here. So it's actually not looking too terrible now, not as bad as what it did, but I can keep going in here. There's also another option that I like to choose here called Paint Operation Smooth. And I tend to go soft with the brush here. And as I do that, it's not adding. Notice that your value goes away. Your opacity is still there. How much basically you want to smooth, let's say the blue into the green area. And I'll do a little sample here. So as I brush around here, maybe I should bring that up. It's having very, very small effects, and it's smoothing out, not adding any extra weights to it. So you can see right there, it's just taking some of that green and blending it with the blue. And so you can do that as well as change the effect that smoothing is having on that geometry. Now, once you get this to a point where you like it and you're happy with how this is going, you can mirror this to the opposite side. So I am going to go to Skin. Actually, first what I'm going to do is lock this, because as you move, what I would suggest is moving down the hierarchy. Starting on the shoulder, I would then go to the left arm. Well, I don't want the left arm painted weights to affect what I just did on the shoulder. So I lock the shoulder to then go down and start to make changes here. Let's say I'm happy with the shoulder and I do want to mirror it to the opposite side. I'm going to go to skin on top, mirror skin weights. I'm going to go to the option box. And what I like to do is reset my settings here just to make sure nothing has been changed from before. And what it's going to do is basically YZ mirroring. And basically it's going to take the positive to the negative. So whatever is on the positive side of the X axis is going to mirror to the other side. So I'm going to mirror it, and I can check it out here. Right shoulder. Now it's not flexed the same, but that is where it mirrored to. So I'm going to go ahead and lock that one as well. And I'm going to work my way down the left arm. And I can keep it at this pose, or I can change it to another pose and continue on down the way. Now what I would do is, as you're doing this, is flex that joint and see how is it looking. Maybe there's another place that you can adjust it, like this. Maybe on the downward pose, I can go back into that left shoulder and maybe adjust, like in here, how these weights are affected on the inside of his ribs, or his inside part of his arm where his ribs are. So it takes a lot of tweaking, and it takes a lot of patience as you paint these weights onto your model. So those are, and if you want to go back into that painting tool, double click over here, or just click once, and then click your model, and then over here, choose the bones that you want to adjust, or the skinned joints basically is where you want to adjust. So that is pretty much what we're going to do here, and check out the assignment to show to see how you're going to show your painted weights here, because you won't be able to show the whole rig painted at the same time. You can see that's going to do one at a time, and so just start off on your major joints, work your way down, and keep things as simple as possible. Flex your model to see how it should bend. Even at the spine would be a good place to look as well. You can see that these different spine bones also have joints that need to move. And so check your model and see how it looks. See how it bends. I think the back looks pretty good for this model. And then same thing with the legs. I usually start with these at a bent kind of setting, and look at some of the creases, some of the joints, and see how you can adjust those things. And remember, freeze them by locking those joints, and then lock them up and mirror them to the opposite sides. That way you only have to deal with the weights on one side of your model rather than both. The only time you can't do that is obviously on the spine, the neck, and the back area, the hips as well. So give this a try. Once you're finished, put your model into some poses that show that you have adjusted the weights of those body parts. I'm mostly interested in your shoulder areas as well as your hip areas. Those tend to be the bigger problem areas. So try that out, and remember to keep going back and forth to see what between posing your model and painting your model to see how the effects are taking place. Okay, so next time.